Good morning. Welcome to the Heritage Foundation and our Douglas and Sarah Allison Auditorium. We, of course, welcome those who are joining us on our heritage.org website. For those in-house, we ask that last courtesy check that our various mobile devices have been silenced or turned off. And for those watching online, you're welcome to send questions or comments at any time, simply emailing speaker@heritage.org. And of course, we will post today's program on our Heritage website for everyone's future reference. Leading our program today and welcoming our special guest is Dr. Niall Gardiner. Dr. Gardiner has now over a decade of experience in U.S.-British relations. He is a graduate of Yale and Oxford, and he was a member of Lady Thatcher's personal staff following her time in the premiership. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Niall Gardiner. Niall?
Thank you very much, John. Good morning. Welcome to the Heritage Foundation and this morning's event, Iraq After ISIS is Defeated in Mosul, a Kurdish View, with our distinguished guest, Masrour Barzani. The military campaign launched by the anti-ISIS coalition has made significant progress in the last few months. The Iraqi army, in coordination with Iraqi Kurdish and Shiite forces, began an offensive against Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, last October, and launched a fresh assault just last week. These forces, aided by a US-led air campaign and supported by US advisors, trainers, artillery batteries, and special operations forces, have now surrounded and retaken most of the city. The presumed government victory is seen as critical to delivering a final death knell to ISIS's territorial control in Iraq, where it has only a few remaining footholds. But larger challenges remain. As former US General David Petraeus, who battled against the Sunni uprising in Iraq from 2007 to 2008 says, the military defeat of ISIS is only the first step. The much more challenging task is to use all elements of American and coalition power to help achieve political solutions that will avoid once again creating fertile ground for extremists and thereby avoid the rise of ISIS 3.0. In many ways, there are more questions than answers. How will ordinary people recover their homes and lives? What political agreements need to be brokered to prevent an ISIS resurgence? What is the role of the US in this transformation? And what does this all mean for future regional stability? Masrour Barzani serves as the Chancellor of the Kurdistan Region Security Council of the Kurdistan Regional Government, and this morning will provide his perspective on the progress of the war with ISIS, immediate and long-term challenges faced by Iraq, and the future of relations between Kurdistan, Iraq, and the United States. He has been a leading figure in the fight against ISIS and is also the founder of the Barzani Charity Foundation in Iraqi Kurdistan. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Barzani.
Thank you, Niall. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased, and it's an honor for me to be standing here and share some of my views with you about some of the topics that Niall just laid out. As you know, we are getting close to end the war in Mosul against ISIS. ISIS is almost on the verge of defeat in the city and also in Iraq. It was a very difficult war when ISIS first launched war on Iraq and especially on Kurdistan in 2014. We all expected that this will be a long fight. Now we are coming to almost the end of this chapter. ISIS, I have no doubt, will be militarily defeated in Mosul soon, I hope, and also in the rest of Iraq. But we don't think that the military defeat of ISIS is going to be the end of terrorism in Iraq or in the region. There will be still the ideology carried by some of the members and the followers of ISIS or people before ISIS or after ISIS. We all know that ISIS is the continuation of what was called Al-Qaeda, and after ISIS there will be either similar organizations or people of this extremist ideologies, and they will probably be all over the world. So we do believe that the future war against terrorism may not be militarily, but it will be an intelligence war against these terrorist organizations. And we do hope that the entire intelligence community will come together to make sure that we try all together to eradicate this problem once and for all. We know that this is going to be a very big challenge, not easy, but we have no other choice but to cooperate with each other. We must not forget all those people that have sacrificed their lives in this fight. We salute those fallen Peshmergas and soldiers that have sacrificed their lives to protect us and to fight this terrorist organization. Until now, based on the final record that I have, we have lost 1,707 Peshmergas and 9,997 Peshmergas have been wounded. Of course, there have been casualties from other Iraqi security forces. And of course, I must thank the United States and the coalition for helping us in this fight against ISIS. Their support, especially the airstrikes they provided, were very critical and very helpful to push back ISIS and also to help us liberate many of those areas that ISIS had initially captured. So as you know, ISIS will be militarily defeated, as I said, but we have to look beyond and see what happens the day after. We have always believed that there must be a political settlement and political dialogue amongst all the components of Iraq, as is the focus of my speech today. We understand that there are so many different components in Iraq, and many of them have been affected, especially the Christians, the Yazidis, and others, in fact, the Kurds and even Arabs. They all have been affected, and they all have suffered a lot because of the rise of ISIS. We must not make a mistake that believe that ISIS is the only problem that we have. ISIS is the byproduct of much bigger problems in this country. ISIS is there because there was a political failure in the system, not only in Iraq, but in the region. So in order to solve those issues and to make sure that we do not see another ISIS, we must look at the root causes that led to the rise of ISIS and other organizations like ISIS. We do have a vision, we do have a roadmap, and we are willing to share those views with Baghdad and with all the neighboring countries about what needs to be done to make sure that we will have a sustainable solution for peace and stability in our region. But in order to talk on behalf of our people, we must make sure that we hear our people's views. We need to know what the Kurdish people say, or people of Kurdistan would have to say. For that matter, for that reason, we have to, and we have decided to have a referendum, which is a very democratic practice exercised in all democratic countries. So we need to go and ask our people to see how they envision their future relationship with Baghdad and how they think they need to live and to guarantee a safe future for themselves. After we know the results, we are going to talk and negotiate with Baghdad. We have already opened dialogue with Baghdad, and we have already spoken with many of the officials in Baghdad and beyond about what we think would be the best solution. We cannot ignore the fact that we need to talk to each other. We must talk. We must find a common ground. What we offer is not a complication, but a solution. We don't think that what we are saying and what we are trying to achieve for the future relationship between Kurdistan and Baghdad is going to complicate the already complicated issues and very complex, outstanding, unsolved problems in our country. We do believe that peaceful means and dialogue is the only way that we can move forward. And we have already started that, and we'll continue to talk to the officials in Baghdad and share our views with them and tell them what we think would be the best way forward. We must understand that if there had not been a failed system, we may not have had these problems that we are facing today. Some of the challenges, be it terrorism or, let's say, social disorder, political instability, economic collapse that we've seen, are the results, they're all interrelated somehow. So we have to fix and find solutions for every piece and bit of what has gone wrong. So we hope that we can, in fact, find a common ground where we all feel safe and can live in peace together. We are also here in Washington, and we have exchanged our views with the officials here. We have already talked about our expectations and what we think would be a sustainable solution for our region, especially in Iraq. In fact, we are very hopeful that with a common understanding, we can secure a better future for all of us. This is what I had to say, but I'll be open to any questions and remarks if you have, and I'll be more than happy to answer some of those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chancellor, for those very, very inspiring remarks. And I'd like to actually open with a question about the international coalition in Iraq at the moment. And I was wondering what your views are with regard to how that coalition could be expanded. What more could the US and its allies be doing in Iraq at this time? Should we be seeing, for example, a bigger contribution being made by European countries, such as Great Britain, France, Germany, for example? I was wondering if you could address those issues.
Of course, we are very thankful for all the contributions that the American-led coalition, all the European countries have made and helped. But we do believe that at the end, they must first talk to the people of the region to hear what they have to say and what solutions they have to offer. I think all the contribution and the support that comes from outside has to be synchronized and go hand in hand with the expectations and the solutions that the people of the region themselves want. So hopefully, if we open that dialogue with them as well, and if they are willing to come and perhaps fix some of the mistakes that have been made many, many years ago, and 100 years ago, I hope that they can realize that it's time to review some of those decisions and to have a fresh start for some of the solutions that for so long have been gone unsolved.
Thank you. And I'd like to invite questions now from the audience. And please do keep your questions short and to the point. And also, please do identify yourself and any institutional affiliation that you may have. And the lady over here has the first question.
Dr. Christina Maria Wilczek, the World Peace Organization. I'm a very great friend of Iraq and its Babylonian strong nation. So all these consequences with ICCI are consequences of the war. So you need to be much more smarter than any evil temptation and search a contact with ICCI because they are intelligent people, but use them for the good purpose. And then unify all Iraq, good purpose for your own nation. And I just give you an example. If you have a family with the same wife, 10 children, they love each other, but sometimes they fight. And you will not solve problem by killing one.
I don't know, was there a question or a comment?
Yeah, actually, we'll take the next question. Thank you for that comment. And we have the gentleman at the back there, and then I'll take a question over here. Yeah.
Hi, Carlo Munoz with the Washington Times. Sir, I wanted to ask you, there's been reports out of Baghdad that there are discussions about possibly creating a new status of forces agreement with the United States to allow American troops to continue to stay in Iraq beyond the defeat of Daesh. First question is, sir, what is your take on that? Is that something you support? And two, if there is an agreement made with Baghdad, will a separate agreement need to be made with Kurdistan to allow American troops to stay in that part of the country?
Well, we do support any agreement with the United States to have their troops in our country. Of course, the decision, if it's made in Baghdad, then you have to pursue Baghdad to agree to those terms. But we, as the Kurds, have always been in favor of having the American troops in our country.
And take a question actually from the lady over here.
Lori Milroy, Kurdistan 24. My question actually relates to the previous one, and that is there are obvious problems now with between the U.S. and Turkey, which may cause Turkey to impose restrictions on U.S. use of Incirlik Air Base. Are there facilities? Can you imagine that facilities in airport facilities and basing facilities in the Kurdistan region could be part of an alternative to U.S. use of Incirlik?
I wouldn't say that we offer any alternatives, but we certainly have offered our willingness to cooperate with the United States, and if they are willing to use the facilities that exist in Kurdistan, we have already welcomed that.
Thank you. And take the gentleman right over here.
Hello. Oh, yes. I'm a veteran of the YPG. I was in 2015, I fought with YPG for 6 months. I just have a question basically because on my way back, there was some problems with KRG where they arrested us several times, and I never really had any problem with KRG, and also some of my comrades last week were also arrested and kept in detention. They never had any problem with KRG, they just wanted to fight ISIS. And also many human rights organizations such as Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, Yazidi Relief Fund, and others trying to rebuild rubble of the civilian infrastructure and have no affiliation with politics, just want to help humanity. They've been prevented from crossing the border. And when my friend died, Mario Nunes, his body was prevented to cross the border for political reasons. And I want to know what you're doing about that to prevent these problems from happening in the future. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
I'm not aware that any humanitarian efforts have been stopped or anyone that has tried to cross the border to go into Syria. In fact, we've been contributing ourselves, and as Niall said, that the Barzani Charity Foundation has been a very active organization in providing support in Kobane and Afrin and other parts. Of course, I hope that you ask this question to YPG as well, because as far as I understand, they are the ones that are preventing people from Syria to go back. 300,000 refugees from Syria are in Iraqi Kurdistan, and they are willing to go back, and YPG is not allowing them to go back. So I think you got the situation reversed. So I hope that you straighten your records.
Yeah, I'll take the next question. And so the lady in green.
Can you tell us what reaction you expect from your neighbors to the referendum on independence? And do you think Turkey will accept the idea of Kurdish independence? And have you had any indication from the Americans that they will accept? I'm Trudy Rubin from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And also, can you tell us what you think is the solution for the mess in Sinjar right now?
We think that doing referendum is a very democratic process, and it's been practiced all over. So I don't see anybody actually openly opposing the idea, because we just want to know what our people want. And see just more recently, there was a referendum in Scotland and there was a referendum in Quebec. So why would it be a problem if we have referendums in, in Kurdistan? I cannot speak for any country to whether support or oppose the idea, but we are determined to have the referendum and to see what our people have to say. As far as your second part of the question in Sinjar, I think what you call it the mess, I think it's because of the intervention of some external elements in that area, which we do believe that they must go back to where they have come from. Basically, some PKK elements that are in that region are not helpful in reconstructing the area or to bringing peace back to that region. So we hope that they understand and they respect the rule of law and also the administration of Sinjar that has been calling for them to return to where they've come from.
Actually, we have a question right at the back over there.
Hello, I'm Michael Gunter, professor at Tennessee Technological University. If the referendum is held and you opt for independence, how will you square that with the current political stalemate and economic crisis in Kurdistan?
Thank you. I think one of the unifying factors that we have is the referendum. We may disagree on many other issues, internal issues with each other, which is very common. But I think there is one factor, referendum is one issue that we all have supported, and I do believe that the other political parties, especially their constituencies, are going to be very supportive of the idea. We are trying to talk to all the internal, other political parties inside Kurdistan to come to some sort of an agreement. In fact, we have decided that there will be a committee consisted of the representatives of other parties, especially for this purpose, to see how we can move forward to have the referendum. And as for the economic problems that we are facing, let me just remind you that we faced a number of issues together. We woke up to a war with ISIS, which was very costly. And as a result of the failure in other parts of the country, in Iraq, 1.8 million IDPs from other parts came to Kurdistan. Now that number has increased to 2 million because about another 200,000 that have fled Mosul are also, they have also come to Kurdistan. So we have about 2 million IDPs and 300,000 refugees from Syria. No one actually offered economic support, significant economic support, especially Iraq. They didn't. So our population increased by 30%. We were at war with ISIS. The price of oil dropped. And above all of that, the Iraqi government cut off the budget. And that's why we had that tremendous economic pressure. But we have survived. We have survived. And I think that we are only at the beginning of recovery of our economy and also the internal political differences that we have. We are trying to make sure that we come to some common understanding about how to do this together. We do believe that our unity is important, and we are trying everything we possibly can to make sure that this is a national decision and not just a one-party decision.
Question at the back over here.
Thank you. Thank you. بسریدت و خیراتی واشنگتونه و انگلی که پاشی مدودتی و ام به چارچاوا بندا سرخوبونا کردستان نجو یعنی او کسی سرخوبونا کردستان اعلام بکه ید دل مدود دیروگا کردستان در ناو خوب بنفسو و ام هنگی صبح لسر وی رادبین و ام بندوی بریارن. So my question is gonna be about Hashd al-Shabi. So how Kurdistan region is aware of Hashd al-Shabi threat? Because just 2 days ago the Hashd al-Shabi forces entered the Shangal, one of the Shangal provinces. So, and most of the experts say Hashd al-Shabi after ISIS is going to be one of the main problems in the Middle East. So how you see the Hashd al-Shabi threat against Kurdistan?
Well, let me say that Hashd al-Shaabi, or the Popular Mobilization Force, as it's known, is from very different backgrounds. There are many different groups within the PMF. We don't have anything against the PMF. They have fought alongside other Iraqi forces when they were needed, but the only concern that we have is when there are some of the statements that we have heard from some of the leaders that were not very supportive when it comes to our relationship with them. We do believe that they must respect our mutual friendship and to respect the rule of the Kurds and the boundaries of Kurdistan, and also to appreciate the sacrifices of the Peshmergas that they've done in liberating many of those areas. So actually, the rest will depend on them. We have no intention of animosity or to have any, let's say, problems with them, but it will be up to them how supportive they will be in accepting the new realities in our country.
Thank you. Number of questions here, right? So I shall let me take now the gentleman here in the first, and then I'll circle back. Thank you.
Hussein Ibrahim, I'm the student here at Washington, D.C. I would like to know, I do the research about the humanitarian crisis in Kurdistan. I would like to know how much the humanitarian crisis have affected Kurdistan region.
Well, unfortunately, like I just explained, we have about almost 2 million IDPs in Kurdistan, which is unfortunately a tremendous pressure and burden on the KRG with all the limited resources, and because of the other issues that we are facing, like the war and also the problems with Baghdad over the budget. So that, so far, still we believe that many people are looking at Kurdistan as a safe haven, whether because there is better security or because they have enough shelters to come. So we hope that the entire international community is stepping in to help the KRG, and especially to provide all the humanitarian support that these people living in camps need. So far we haven't had the crisis, but I'm afraid that if these people do not return to their homes, and if they continue to stay in Kurdistan without having additional support from other countries, I'm afraid that their conditions is not going to be any better.
Thank you. And I'm going to take the question right here in the middle.
Yeah, thank you very much for your remarks. John Dixon with the Global Peace Foundation. I really appreciated your response to the question about the economic situation, and it's a miracle that I think Kurdistan has survived, especially in light of our U.S. foreign policy toward Kurdistan. I think could have been handled much better. I wondered if, I know the new administration is reconsidering our approach to Iraq and Kurdistan and the region, and I wondered if you could give us any insight on how that conversation is going.
Well, thank you. We are very encouraged by having so many friends in this administration as well. We understand that they're still listening to many different sides and trying to make up their mind about their policy. But as far as the discussions that we've had, we are pleased with the discussions and the talks that we had with them. We always have high expectations from the United States, especially after all the sacrifices that our people and our Peshmergas have done, and all the blood that we have shed together. We hope that the Peshmergas and the Kurdish people will be rewarded for their sacrifice.
And I'm going to take actually the lady here in the front. Right here, yes.
I wanted to ask you two things. Thanks. Aliza Marcus, I'm an independent writer, mainly on the PKK. I had two questions. One, Masrour Barzani worked with the non-PYD Syrian opposition 3 times to negotiate agreements to allow more political pluralism and other activities in Rojava. None of the agreements were implemented, as far as I understand. Will there be a 4th attempt? And alongside that, what are the plans with the Rojava Peshmerga? There was an interest in having them play a role inside Rojava. That seems to sort of have been dropped, and I'm wondering what role you see for them.
Well, and every other party beside PKK affiliates have agreed to work together to come up with a comprehensive solution for the Kurds in Syria. And our president hosted 3 conferences in Duhok and Erbil, including having PYD and YPG representatives to talk with the rest of the other Kurdish parties. They agreed on many points and the terms of the agreement, but unfortunately after they returned, YPG refrained from implementing them and just acted unilaterally. And unfortunately, the way that they treated the other parties and deported them and arrested them wasn't very helpful. In fact, Peshmerga of Rojava is, they are Kurds from Syria. They're from Kobane, from Afrin, from Derek, from Qamishli, from all over. They are the ones that have fought alongside our Peshmergas in the fight in Mosul, in Sinjar, in Kaske, in many of these other battles. And they have sacrificed. Many of them have been killed. Many others have been wounded. In fact, sometimes when their bodies were transferred to go back to Syria, YPG stopped them and didn't allow them to go back because they were covered in Kurdistan's flag. So we hope that everybody will come to understand that together they can survive and they can build a better place. We are never going to say no to another round of negotiations. So if PYD, YPG, and other parties are willing to come together and to reach an agreement to sort out their problems peacefully, we will definitely going to be helping them to reach that end.
Thank you. And the gentleman right.
Thank you so much. My name is Saleh. I'm from Voice of America, Kurdish Service. Mr. Barzani, whether we like it or not, it seems like you are facing a problem with the PKK or its affiliate in Sinjar. So the first part of my question, actually, Elisa asked you, but the other part is just you dealing with the PKK in Sinjar. Do you have like a solution for that? Like, I mean, peacefully, or you see it's just gonna be worse? And what's the United States saying about this problem? Thank you.
Okay. Well, yes, there is a problem. We don't have a problem. They have a problem with us. They are the ones that have brought their own problems into our territories. We hope that they respect the integrity and the authorities of the Kurdistan region, and they listen to what we have to say, what the people of Sinjar have to say. As far as I understand, the entire communities and institutions of the Yazidis, the majority of them have asked for the PKK to return to where they have come from, although there are many different explanations, but as far as I know, and many of those people that we know by name have come from other parts of the world. They are not even from Sinjar. So the best and the only solution is for them to respect the will of the KRG and also the people of that area, and to leave them in peace and let all of us to work together to reconstruct a very devastated place. So that would be really the only solution that I think the people will accept.
The lady over here.
Hi, Mr. Masrour Barzani. It's a big honor to have you in here. My question here is about the Kirkuk state. As you know, that is one of our big issue about the Kirkuk. Can you tell me when the time is going to come to implement Article 140? And as we know that our President Masrour Barzani, he all the time mention about the Kirkuk state, and he talk about that historically and geographically is a part of the Kurdistan. But it seems that all the time, central government of Iraq showed a reaction over this city. Then I just want to make sure that when the time is going to come to implement 140 articles. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's long overdue. Right after the Constitution was ratified, the Iraqi government and the local authorities in Kirkuk were supposed to implement Article 140. Article 140 is not only talking about Kirkuk, but about the entire disputed territories. So it was supposed to be implemented, but it was the Iraqi government that refrained from actually implementing the article. Let me just walk you through what the Article 140 is. It's 3 phases. One is the normalization of the situation, which means that all the people that have been forcefully deported from the city or the province must be returned, and those people that have come to replace them would be compensated and returned to where they originally came from. That is a part of the normalization. The other part of the normalization that's often ignored is the boundaries of the province itself. Many of the districts that were predominantly Kurdish were detached from the province and were given to the neighboring provinces to shrink the size of the province and then to make it easy to change the demography of the province. So the other part of the normalization is really to bring back or to reattach all of those districts that have been purposefully detached from the province. This is a part of it. The second phase would be to take census to see how many people are of different ethnic groups. And the third part would be the referendum. The referendum would only be, those people would be qualified to participate in the referendum that are original inhabitants of that province. So we cannot have people from outside in either way to make decisions on behalf of those people. We understand if the normalization phase alone is implemented, which is reattaching all those districts to Kirkuk, and then to have the people deported return, and the ones that have been forcefully brought in to be compensated and sent back home. In that case, we understand, it's our firm belief that the population and the percentage of the Kurdish people is going to be very obvious, and more than 70% in fact. So, but there is a reason why it's not implemented. So if there is a will, there is a way. Unfortunately, Iraq had many, many years since the constitution was ratified until now that it was not implemented. Now, let's say that since 2014 until now we had the war against ISIS. But it was the Peshmergas that actually defended Kirkuk and did not let Kirkuk to be taken by ISIS the way that Mosul was taken by ISIS. So we do believe that the identity of Kirkuk is very clear, but we also hope that we can reach an understanding with Baghdad, but more importantly, with the people of Kirkuk to make a decision about the fate of the province.
Thank you. And I'm going to actually take a question actually up. So,
David.
In fact,
David Bullock.
Yeah, if you can go first, and then we'll take another question as well.
Thanks very much, and thank you for your presentation. I'm Dave Pollack from the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. I want to ask if you would be willing to say a few words about relations between Kurdistan and Iran, and particularly on 2 issues. One is the reports about Iranian support for the PKK, both inside the KRG in Sinjar, in neighboring areas, in Kandil and elsewhere. And 2 is the issue of the new administration here in Washington and its reported desire to push back more strongly against Iran's influence all around the region. How does that affect your calculations and your discussions with people here in town? Thank you.
Our views have been very clear, and we intend to have very good relations with all of our neighbors. But we also refuse interventions of any other country in the internal affairs of our country. So this is a firm and solid position that we have. We hope that Iran and other countries will respect the decisions and the will of our people in our region, and that they do not use any proxies for creating any additional problems. So we are in constant dialogue with all people that matter to us. We are talking to everyone to make sure that we will have a peaceful relations with all of our neighbors. And as far as the United States is concerned, we cannot speak on their behalf. We are also here to understand how they think and what their policy will be, and that any decisions that they make. But we live in a very tough neighborhood, and the national security of our people is our top priority. And we will stand by anyone that is supporting Kurdistan and the desires of the Kurdish people.
We'll take a question from the lady at the back, and then I'm going to take a question over on the right.
Thank you. I'm Nina Shea. I'm from the Hudson Institute. As you know, most of Iraq's Christians were in Nineveh province, and most of them then were welcomed into Kurdistan for the last 3 years as IDPs. Do you have any plans for this population once ISIS is defeated, either for protection of them, they do not have their own militias, for going back, or for staying in Kurdistan? Thank you.
In fact, prior to the operation of Mosul, we were the ones that suggested that there must be a political dialogue amongst all the components, including the Christians, to talk about the future of Mosul. So it's not only enough to win the war against ISIS, but we have to make sure that we win the peace by bringing all these people together who will accept to live together. And we cannot speak on behalf of anyone as much as we don't want anybody else to speak on our behalf. So I would say that we strongly suggest and support any decisions that the Christians themselves have to make for themselves, and we are going to support the decisions they make.
My name is Goran. I'm a Kurdish activist. Thank you, Masrour, for all your insights. So I heard that KRSC is going to hold a referendum. So my question is to how far that the referendum will be practically as a step toward declaring our independence, or it may be, as some media outlet referred to recently, it might be used as a tool to open a new phase of negotiation with Baghdad, to use it to gain some governmentally beneficial posts, and it's related. Thank you.
Well, that's not true, because the referendum is the voice of people. So who is going to use the voice of people for their own benefit? If people decide something, it must. So we all have to listen to what people have to say. But we intend to actually conduct this referendum towards the end of this year. This is a decision that the technicalities of it will be up to the committee that is responsible to hold these elections. So it's a very serious issue. It's not for any propagandas, and I don't think that anybody has allowed the voice that the people, and we have to get back to our people and see what they want.
The gentleman in front here.
My question is continue about Hashd al-Sha'bi. The Iraqi army, exactly the Hashd al-Sha'bi, they tried to campaign in Kirkuk and Khanaqin, and exactly they founded base in Kirkuk. It started from K1, Bashir, Taza, Daquq. That's when they tried to siege Kirkuk. So what's your reaction about that? And we can see a lot leader of the Hashd al-Sha'bi, they visit in Kirkuk now a couple times, and they announced that something is not good about the Kurdish. So I don't know what's your reaction. Thank you very much.
Like I said, we want to sort out all of our problems with all the parties involved peacefully. But as regarding these regions that you mentioned, there have been the war against ISIS was divided into 8 sectors. And the sectors that you're talking about had other military commanders that actually belonged to different political parties. And the decisions that were made by them to collaborate with Hashd al-Sha'bi in the fight against ISIS, I think that question must be put to them to give you a more precise answer. But as far as we are concerned, We have total respect for the integrity of the Kurdish territories, and we hope that whatever has been happening in the war against ISIS, eventually we will come to some terms and understandings of having mutual respects for each other, and that they do not want to impose their will on what's traditionally been part of Kurdistan.
Question at the back.
Thank you, Ravaz Ali with Rudaw. Masrour, you tweeted about your meetings with White House officials yesterday. Can you tell us if you also talked about the issue of referendum, and what do you think is this White House, is this administration's position on that? And also another question about the internal politics of Kurdistan. How are the negotiations going with other political parties in Kurdistan, in preparation for a referendum? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the details of my meeting with the National Security Council advisors and all those people that we met yesterday. But we are very encouraged by our friendship and by the encouraging words that we have heard from Americans about our relationship with the United States and the future of our region. And as far as the internal discussions for referendum goes, yes, there are efforts on the way, and there are talks with everyone. We have already been having several meetings with all those political parties that want to be a part of this national process. So, and we will continue to work with them and make sure that we will come up with a united view on how we need to do the referendum.
And actually a question right here in front.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very impressive. All modern progress begins at home. And I'm wondering if you might comment on the status of women within Kurdistan and what the horrible stories we hear about honor killings. Thank you.
Yes. Well, based on our law, 30% of women must be members of the parliament. I think this number is way above many other European and Western countries. But there is unfortunately a bitter reality of the mistreatment of women that has come out as a result of some of the cultural backgrounds and the ignorance of some individuals. And our government is trying everything we possibly can to start with educating people, talking about the equality of gender and talking about the importance of women. And I must say very proudly that women in Kurdistan have proven that they are no less than men, and they have been fighting very bravely against the terrorist organization of ISIS. And I think the world is a witness of the ability and capabilities of the Kurdish women.
Thank you. And gentleman right here.
Greg Klein from New Jersey City University. A lot of the international tension's been on ISIS's online presence and cyber recruitment. I'm wondering if you can speak from your perspective inside the Kurdistan region, how that fits into kind of the post-military intelligence fight that you spoke about earlier.
Could you say that? Could you repeat the
Sure.
question again?
So a lot of the international attention's been on ISIS's online or cyber media presence and cyber recruitment. I'm wondering if you could speak from your perspective inside the region to speak to that a little bit and how this fits into that post-military confrontation intelligence fight.
I must say that we are lucky that our people are traditionally not radicalists. And we don't see a lot of support for terrorism or extremism. We are a tolerant people. And if you look at the diversity of religious people, different religions and ethnic backgrounds in Kurdistan, I think you will know that the Kurds are probably, or Kurdistanis, are the most tolerant people in the Middle East. That has helped us by not encouraging many people to join terrorist organizations. In fact, our intelligence community has been very blessed by the support that they get from our own people. They have been the ones that have notified our intelligence services about the unusual behavior of individuals if they know something is wrong. So basically, we have taken a lot of measures to make sure that terrorism in Kurdistan is minimal. There is no absolute security anywhere in the world. I mean, there is not here in this country, nowhere. But if you look at Kurdistan, where it stands, it's an oasis of stability in the sea of war and problems and challenges that we all face. And just to give you some records, the number of terrorist activities in Kurdistan since the beginning of the rise of terrorism until now are less than the number of terrorist activities carried out in other parts of Iraq in one day. So 26 years to one day. That is how we have managed to make sure that security of Kurdistan is maintained. But a lot of that credit goes back to our own people and to the cooperation and to the competency of our services. So, I'm obviously not going to talk about all the measures, but the results, I think, speak for our success.
We have time for actually just a couple of last questions. So I'm going to start with the gentleman over here. Being very patiently waiting.
Thank you. بخير بي من دانا قطابي ماستر لا خوين ماستر لا بربرني فروكواني لقال خزانم جزنك حاكم صديق درس برسالك مابو حركة شريف فورمي لسردستي جنابي سروكو برستان لكردستان بديدة كريمش باوكو جنزان دلخوشي لنيو جنزان ولكوتي زوري لها. Do you have any plan for those of us who studied abroad and have experience and who especially who wants to go back into Kurdistan and serve, wants to serve, let's say?
Well, it's my personal preference that always we get the most educated people come back to Kurdistan and serve their country. And just to let you know that I established a university in Duhok called the American University of Kurdistan in Duhok only because we need to help people be what they need to be. We need to help our young leaders to become the future leaders of our country. So definitely, I mean, you have this opportunity to come and study here. I hope that whenever you're done, you can come back and serve in the fields that is, your expertise. And definitely, I think the president is very supportive of the abilities of the youth and to have them serve their country. So, good luck to you.
Thank you. And I'm afraid I have time actually for just one last question. And the gentleman over here has been waiting for a long time.
Hello, I'm Mikhail. I represent Chaldean Syrian Popular Council. I have two questions, actually.
Please.
If the Christians, Yazidis, and Turkmen don't participate in the referendum process, you think that the process will stop from moving on? And second question is, Nineveh Plain is divided by two parts, south and north. North is controlled by KRG and south controlled by Baghdad. So end of ISIS there, you think these two parts will join together in the future? Thank you.
You're talking about the disputed territories. Obviously, what we said, we cannot speak on behalf of anybody that live in the disputed territories. It's up to them to decide which side they want to be on, and that is the whole purpose of the Article 140 and to solve this issue peacefully. So if people that you mentioned, all these groups, they want to be a part of this referendum, and they want to participate by, they don't have to vote in certain ways. I mean, they're free to say whatever they want. It's up to them if they want to participate or not. But that doesn't mean that we will not conduct referendum if some regions do not want to be a part of it.
Right, and I'm afraid we've run out of time, but I'd like to give a very big thank you to Chancellor
Well, thank
Barzani
you.
for.
Thank you, sir.
And I wish you and the people of Kurdistan all the best.
Thank you so much.
And we are, truly humbled by the bravery and sacrifices made by the people of Kurdistan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
How do we go?